Welcome back to the IAM Winter Solstice Symposium, providing you a virtual gathering space during the midwinter winds. Please warm your hearts at our fire. We have 18 wise women who walk their talk presenting this year. What makes this gathering extra special is a group of dedicated fire tenders who are holding space throughout this entire 12-day ceremony, and so allowing you to go deeper into your work. And today, I'm really excited to present one of my teachers, Luzia. And Luzia was born Jewish, raised a humanist, and practiced Buddhist meditation most of her life. She has participated in Native American ceremonies for 23 years and has been a follower of Mother Amachi for 20 years. In 1987, she was enchanted by the Queen of the Forest and initiated into the Church of Santo Daime. She lived extensively in the Brazilian rainforest and practiced herbal medicine, energetic healing, spirit work, mediumship, and sacraments practiced there. Hello, Luzia. How are you tonight?
I'm fine. Hello, Renee. And today is the day of Santa Luzia. So happy day of...
how wonderful is that? How perfect for our call.
Uh-huh.
And so one of the things I had asked before we got on to this was that you could share some of your experiences and your wisdom about, rituals and practices that people can use during the winter solstice and during this next, period of our, transition into winter, and things that you think that would be useful for people who are navigating these, tumultuous winds of change.
Mhm. Are you speaking about the current times that we're in, or speaking about more personally?
Well, I think globally we're in some really challenging times, but I think that people have started to find their way through this and say, okay, this is just tumultuous, but this is kind of the period that we're in. So, but right now we're in the winter solstice gathering, and how to really take our medicines and go deeper with ourselves, to become stronger in our practices.
Mhm. So just thinking generally about how to work with this time, inward time, but at the same time being conscious that there's a lot of upheaval all over the globe, and in our country especially, we're being bombarded on every front. So I think that you're talking about how we stay centered and grounded in ourselves and not get totally distracted by what's happening out there, at the same time be completely conscious of what's happening and be preparing ourselves. Something like that?
Absolutely, because I know, even there's crazy things going on in the world, but, my own personal life, I'm really having a nice things going on. So it's not one way or another. It's a lot of different ways. And so, maybe provide some tools and some guidance for people how they can be better prepared in their own life, no matter what winds are blowing.
Mhm. Well, I think there's a whole progression of things which start with our own personal awareness and our own capacity to be grounded, to be practical to how we live on this earth, and also to be centered in our own body, mind, spirit alignment. And so I think there has to be a consciousness about self-care, how we protect ourselves, our own self-preservation, how we caretake ourselves so that we're prepared for whatever it is that we need to be doing. So are we eating right? Are we sleeping? Do we exercise? Do we have a good work social balance? Do we have a spiritual life and a spiritual practice? I think all of those things, how we treat ourselves is the first step. But that is I think that's a whole huge step, because it requires in a very fundamental way that we own ourselves, that we own our body, we own our existence, we own our place on this planet. We're working toward the betterment of ourself and our communities. And so there's a really vital question, I think, that sometimes gets forgotten, which is whether we've actually chosen to be here, like be in our bodies, be in this planet, be incarnate. So I think it's a very fundamental reflection for everyone to see if they've actually consciously made that choice to be here, because if it isn't consciously made, then there's a tendency not to be fully present, and it's easy to be distracted and lose sight of the bigger pictures. So I think that especially in this increasing technological era is becoming true, where people are getting further disassociated. They're not owning their proper bodies, caretaking them in the right way, nor even acknowledging a level of being incarnate and embodied. So that's, I think, a really good reflection, because unless that step is present, the rest becomes harder to do.
So is there a question, or is there a method that you have that when you're working with people that you could share with people to even, you're saying, oh, do I even want to be in this body?
Yeah.
So
is
that the question? Or?
Yeah, I ask people outright, right? To what extent do you own your incarnation and your embodiment? Have you actually consciously chosen to be here? And I have people reflect on it. And it's a startling amount of people who have not chosen, which is why I ask the question, because a lot of people haven't ever reflected on it. And when they become ruthlessly honest with themselves, they realize they haven't decided. And there's a whole lot of reasons, good reasons they haven't decided. So that's a beautiful journey that we can go on to see what our resistance is.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So I would ask myself, like in a meditation, hey, did I really choose to come in here, and did I choose to stay in here in 2018, 19 when it's getting really shaky, or what was I thinking?
Well, but it's probably not this year, right? Because if that choice hasn't been made, then that embodiment probably hasn't been complete up until that moment. Interesting.
And what would be signs of it that you're not fully embodying yourself? What would
being ungrounded, living a lot in your head, sometimes in a super emotionality, but it's more in your head, sometimes in fantasy world, sometimes all different things. not taking responsibility for yourself, sometimes depressions, forms of just checking out, addictions for sure. So it's a really important moment when we decide to own that, because then we can become aligned. We can have a body, mind, spirit alignment. Because if we're not embodied here, we're definitely aligned somewhere else, right? So it's just a matter of completing the process. So we have our full alignment.
And do you have some techniques that people could try out to see how they bring themselves more into a little bit of an alignment? If they find out, hey, I'm a little bit off aligned here, but I'm here, so I should probably get aligned here. Wouldn't you think?
I don't think it's that conscious. I think people start reacting to their symptoms, like their addictions or their incapacity to maintain a consistent job or have a successful relationship, or problems with their children, or chronic illnesses that are unexplained, those kinds of things. It's more the symptoms that bring people in. And then with people, who think in those ways, there's a way to reflect that back so that it can begin to happen, so that people aren't just working with the symptoms, because the symptom's just a symptom. You don't get to the root. But often that's the root.
Is not wanting to be embodied here, or not ever really owning that you are embodied here.
Exactly, which means then you have to take a whole nother level of responsibility for yourself here on this planet.
That's something I get that.
It's a very beautiful step that once that part is complete and that alignment is complete, then we have access to whole other parts of ourself, which are actually the parts that can help us go through these times, because we have a full alignment. So we're present here in our body. We take care of ourselves, our bodies. Right, if we're doing that, then we're probably working with our emotional selves as well, or maybe not, to be looked at. And we have more access to our own cosmologies, our higher self, our guides and guardian angels, who are actually the ones who help us move through these times, I think, certainly in my case. So having that alignment leads to a whole nother healthier paradigm in which you get to decide which side you're on, and then how you're going to act in behalf of whatever it is that you're choosing to support, so that you move out of any feeling of any kind of disempowerment into feeling empowered, not only over your own life, but empowered to make a difference wherever it is that you choose.
Wow, that kind of almost sounds paradoxical, that it's only by owning the alignment of yourself in this body that you really truly have access to, all of your other extrasensory perceptions.
Exactly, and one of the biggest blocks that I've discovered in working with people, that people don't want to own their bodies because they're afraid they're going to lose their spiritual connection. But in fact, it's just the opposite. Because if you can own your own embodiment, then you can hone your aparelho, your body, your vessel, to receive those energies in a whole different way. So not only do you not lose that connection, but you can make that connection useful here. So we have to, it's right. It's one of those mystical paradoxes. So we have to. That's part of it. Any spiritual lineage, spiritual practice we get these tests where we have to take a leap of faith. So it's faith that allows us to make that choice, I think, a lot. And one of the tools that I found, of course, most useful is in the plant spirit medicine allies, because the plant spirit medicines show us that. They show us that there's no separation. We understand that we're not separate, that ego and spirit are designed to work together.
Yes, and the interesting thing for me always with the plant medicine work is always about how it works internally with my own body, like the places where I've stored the hurt and the resentment and the anger and the fear, and that they're almost places that are lodged within.
Well, because the plant spirit medicines are spirits, right? And those spirits are intelligent. And so they know in the most expansive sense of the word, vibrationally, where you're still dense and where you're still holding. And that's where they go to liberate those contractions. So in liberating those contractions and opening it, then we have the capacity to expand. So that spirit, that intelligence intersects with our own intelligence, our innate wisdom, and activates it and allows, through the transmutation of our own denser matter, to become lighter. And as we let go of all our contractions, not in our physical body, in our thinking, our thought forms, those thought forms that limit us, limit our belief in ourself, as those become, unraveled, then the medicine is able to help us transmute, and we ourselves get lighter. Our matter becomes less dense, and we have a higher level of frequency and vibration. So that spirit medicine is synchronistic with our being. It meets us and activates us in a really profound way, right? So that our intelligence becomes alive, which is what allows us to continue in our own very intense battle here on this plane, because this planet is dense, and without these allies, without this place of refuge, this place of comfort that these plant spirit medicines give us, in addition to the strength and the intelligence they give us, it would be very difficult to continue on in the missions. So for me, I feel very grateful to have these allies to console me and give me strength and courage to keep going. Yeah.
I work with addiction treatment, and so you're talking, like, people might say, well, that's what, the heroin's doing, or that's what the alcohol's doing. But what's the difference between these vibrational frequencies of, like, spirits and alcohol and plants that are growing in the jungles that are waking people up?
There's a totally different alignment, because natural alcohol is one thing, but processed alcohol is another, right? And so the alcohol is a depressant, and it creates a particular vibration in the body that's depressive. So it's connected with a more primitive elements in us. So I don't think that there's an intelligence in alcohol, whereas the plant spirit medicines are a completely different lineage. Right? They are plants that the indigenous people have found to be in their own proper nature illuminated. So that when we drink the daime or we work with the cannabis or we work with peyote or we work with the Niños Santos, those are they're complete life forms, beings that are elevated, that have ascended, that have that are connected with lineages, that are benevolent and intelligent. So we have a completely different relationship with them. And all of those medicines are done in ritual. All of those medicines come with sets of instructions about how to use them and the proper way of using them so that the spirits, the plant spirits themselves are present and active and feel welcomed into the room, so to speak. So when you're working with those medicines, you're calling in whole lineage of healing beings. Alcohol calls in lineages of beings who are unindoctrinated.
Oh, that's an interesting thought with that. So do you think that a lot of when we're like really drinking too much over the holidays and things like that, it's because we're really not in alignment with our physical bodies? Because if we were in alignment, we wouldn't want to, just let it go nilly-willy anywhere. And do you think that's what's happening with children right now, with this addiction crisis in the world?
I think that's a very complex question because the addiction crisis doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens as a result of deficiency in the society. So it's a social crisis and a reflection of how the society and the communities are not taking care of their members, and that there's probably gross inequalities that are leaving people feeling desperate. So I think that's part of it. Plus, I think there's environmental factors that are a part of it. And I think it's a lack of understanding about ourselves as multidimensional beings. So we become identified with our material self, and the material self, including the way we live, our productivity, all of that, if it isn't going well, and that's what we're connected to and identify with, then a desperation sets in. And so I think it's more related to that.
And I just would like to, so you've taken upon this project that you've really enjoyed working with for the last, I think it's 4 or 5 years now, where that you're really trying to initiate adult women?
Adult girls, it's adult girls into women.
And so that's an attempt to help people embody themselves and, be in their power. What was your founding idea behind that?
Absolutely. Because it has to do, all of what we're talking about in terms of becoming embodied and owning ourselves as adults. So because we don't have initiation rites and because we don't honor the life passages, we kind of pass through them in a glaze. And I think our society is pretty chronically late adolescence, that there's not a level of growing up. So the initiation processes in many cultures are at adolescence to guarantee that the adolescents grow up, become adults, and can take their proper role in society. So it's, in fact, the initiation is essential for the survival of the society, because people have to grow up. In this society, we can kind of slide by without growing up, really. So the program was exactly that for ladies who have felt the lack of that initiation, that lack of owning their own selves as adult women, to give them an opportunity to go through that process. So it's a year-long walk around the medicine wheel, and it's developmental. So we review ourselves, we review our birth and our early infancy, our adolescence, our age of maturity, and to whatever level of self-realization we've come to. And then we have an initiation in the form of a vision quest. And the walk total around, it's all interdisciplinary. So we intertwine movement and process work and creative work and medicine work in each step, so we can understand where we were arrested at each stage of development, so that when we come to our initiation, we can go as clear as possible. And the whole purpose of the initiation is to receive our spiritual alignment, so we know who we are in our body, mind, spirit. So we've worked with our bodies, we've worked with our emotional piece, we've worked on our own spirituality, and when that alignment comes, then we can own our connection with spirit. And when we own our connection with Creator, which is talking about Creator in whatever form we envision it, when we own our connection with Creator, we don't have to project it onto anybody else. So we know that we have a place in the universe. We know that we have a divine connection. And that way we don't have to look for it in our partners and our children and our parents. No, we're contained that way. And so that is a level of full embodiment. Yes. And where we can own ourselves as adult women.
I love that. And where would people find out more about this program and you? Where would they look for this?
I have a website, Integrating Spirit, with a dash between integrating and spirit.com. And the website for the program is adultgirlsintowomen.com. And
Love
there's a link between those two.
Well, I really want to thank you for sharing your wisdom, because I have a few human teachers, and I consider you to be one of my foremost teachers, and I honor and respect you absolutely. So I wanted to include you in this IAM Winter Solstice Symposium. And she's not very technological, so this is a recording only, no visual here, because she really walks her talk.
Thank you, Renee, very much, and I hope that this whole program is a huge success for you, and and that everyone who contributes and who listens to it receives something really good for themselves.
Thank you. And everyone stay tuned. There's still more to come at this Winter Solstice Symposium. And if you're not registered, you just caught this online somewhere, please go to the IAMsymposium.com and get yourself registered for the updates and web links and all of that. So thank you, and have a perfectly beautiful day.
Thank you for joining us today, and you're welcome to share this gift with your friends. Stay with us for the 12 days of the Yule, and if you feel called to go deeper, please join the group of committed fire tenders on the Wind Clan group page wall on Facebook. We look forward to being together with you on this online ceremony to celebrate and bring ritual back to the holy days.